Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that connects people who are struggling with STI stigma to mental health resources. It's been a minute since I recorded, and I want to say it's been a few weeks actually. This will be episode 187, a solo podcast episode. And the last one that I recorded was actually 186, and this would have been a couple of weeks ago. So if I'm a little rusty, bear with me. There are a lot of just general updates that I want to give before I get into the main point of the podcast episode today. Ooh, hopefully I ain't doing that too much. I keep shooting pre-workout straight and dry, and I just like throw it back and then down it with some water, and so I think my throat's a little bit itchy because of that. So I took the pre-workout, decided I'd record this podcast episode and then get my workout in. I'll probably need to take like another quarter scoop or something to get going. But speaking of workouts, I did finish Shanti's 20-minute Beachbody workout series. Did all 6 weeks. I was very proud of myself. I finished it when I went out to San Diego, California, over the week of May 19th or May 13th through May 19th. I was real proud of myself. It was nice to just have stuck to something, started it, and finished it. Because I wanted to stop after 2 weeks. I was like, man, I ain't getting nothing out of this. Like, I can just lift weights, right? But it was really challenging for me, not just physically, but also mentally, to commit to getting up at 4:45 in the morning, getting down to the gym, doing that workout, and then immediately after taking whatever time I had left, like a 20 to 30-minute yoga class as well. But now that that's over, I've switched over to some different at-home workouts because I just want to switch it up and do things different. And in doing those things, I'll be able to offer that type of exercise to the clients that I train at the gym as well. So lots of good coming out of just continuing to move. I also entered a 300-hour yoga teacher training. Now this is exciting for me because of how it happened. I've been in therapy, and I've been in therapy a little bit over a year now. Where we're at May, probably a year and a couple of months. And one of the sessions that he had early in May this year, what my therapist told me was to set a goal for myself. And that was challenging for me because he mentioned earlier to me about a 5-year goal, 10-year goal, and I just got real anxious about it because thinking about the future has always been something that was a struggle for me. Mainly because up until age 18 and then 25, I statistically am not supposed to still be here. So I'm kind of in overtime of life, just considering, my demographic and things like that, like the circumstances that I was born into, let's call it that. But I am, and now I'm 32, and I'm like, you want me to plan for a future? Like, I wasn't even supposed to be here this long. What you mean? But jokes aside, I do see that I can make a plan for the future. The thing is, with the goals that I've accomplished, let's say that, are goals that I haven't set. They're ones that I haven't set for myself. So the struggle here isn't a fear of accomplishing a goal or pursuing a goal. It's the fear of setting one for myself. Now, I've not done that before. It's always been go to school, stay in school, get a degree, get a job. That's it. That's what I was told to do. I've done it, and here we are. I'm 32 years old, and I look up, and in the process, I have 2 degrees in mass comm, advertising and public relations. I have experience 4 years now as a personal trainer. I've got about a year under my belt as a certified 200-hour yoga instructor. I have a podcast I would consider to be successful, a nonprofit that's developing, and there's actually a lot that's just happened from me not setting goals. So I'm questioning if setting goals is even the right thing for me. Do I want to set goals and run the risk of things not going as they have been? Or if I set a goal, does that mean now like I'm intentional about it and it means a lot more if it doesn't succeed? Right? That's ain't that a wild way of thinking? But anyway, I told you to. My therapist told me to set a goal because there was a night before bed where I did that. I said to myself, I am going to commit to yoga teaching or teaching yoga classes or um, of leading yoga classes. And I go to bed and I wake up the next day, and the yoga teacher who gave me my 200-hour certification had tagged me in a post. Someone was looking for male yoga instructors just to model for some of their services. And when I saw that, I went on ahead and reached out to her and thanked her. And she said, "Thank you for thinking of me. I appreciate it." I reached out to the guy and joined the group. We'll see what happens. And that just led to us having dialogue. Given the pandemic, the place that I got my yoga teacher training from, Yoga Buzz, they were figuring out how to navigate the pandemic, being able to continue to offer their services and be able to offer teacher trainings and educate. And so, as necessary as adapting was, they were able to do so. And she'd been talking about offering a 300-hour yoga teacher training as well for a while. And so this was more of an incentive to be able to do that, considering a lot of outdoor stuff was off limits. A lot of studio stuff and even indoor stuff had been off limits. So she was able to put this together. And in that dialogue exchange, somewhere along the line, I was invited to reapply or for them to reopen the application process. So I go on and I apply. And the only concern that I would have had was money, because like I'm on unemployment assistance because I'm not working at 100% capacity anymore. And so when I reapplied, I got through and I was like, oh, money. And I was able to get a scholarship. So, I mean, I had to pay something, of course. But it was affordable for me to be able to enroll in that. And it just seemed like from the declaration of that goal, things aligned for me to be able to take the necessary steps that I needed to take in order to follow through with it. And there's some powerful stuff to be said in that. But that wasn't the point of this podcast episode, so I won't go into too much detail about that. I do talk a lot more about it on my other podcast that I've been doing for about 3 months now. It's called Selfed, SELFED, and it's really just self-exploration, self-discovery, self-expression. I look at it as the self-education that I didn't receive as in my past that would have definitely assisted me in navigating whatever situations I was in. So if you want to go and check that out, it's uploaded everywhere, just like this one is. I think you might have to look up Selfed Courtney Brame because it doesn't show up in searches, and I don't talk about it. This is like the first time I've talked about it, but to me it's just more of like a some sort of an online diary, so to speak, and I'm accountable for at least putting something up there once a week. Journaling has become a little bit tedious for me, and I've come to really enjoy podcasting and just speaking into a microphone freely and exercising this ability, because I think it's also helping me with public speaking, which I see in my future as well. Look at me talking about the future now that I done set one goal and got assurance that I'm on the right track. California. So I went to California, San Diego, and while I was there, I went for a wedding, but I made the first 3-4 days about business, and I got to meet with sex educator Elle Stanger, who's known as Stripper Writer. She and I are going to record a podcast on her podcast, but it was cool to be able to meet her and hang out with her. I met a couple of other people that have been on the podcast before. I don't know if I can say their names. I know Zoe's public about her status. She wrote an article on Medium about her HSV experience, and yeah, it was really nice to meet her as well. And then I don't know that I can say anyone else's name, but I got to meet a handful of people, which was awesome. And then for the wedding, I got to see my high school friends that I haven't seen in, I don't even know how long it's been. But that was very beautiful. And I was in the wedding, and this was a surprise to me because when my friend Mark, he hit me up and he was like, yeah, I need to come take your measurements for the suit. I was like, suit? What you mean? Like, I thought I was just coming to the wedding. He was like, no, bro, you in the wedding. I was like, oh, okay. And I think the reason that I was so surprised was because I can think of probably a dozen people who have probably been more involved, more consistent, or had a higher frequency of appearances in his life, especially over the last like 4 or 5 years, because I've been really indulged in my relationships, in my nonprofit, and surviving, really, if I want to be completely honest, just trying to get by. And I noticed that perhaps I've not been as visible and accessible and frequent in people's lives around me. But when I was still excited about being part of the wedding and being in it, and when I got there, he had said some things that made me go, "Oh, that's why I'm in a wedding," and it was really cool to hear him just talk about like our relationship dynamic, and over the course of time, like it just reaffirmed to me that the quality of experiences in life outweigh the quantity of experiences that you have with a person. So let's look at family, for instance. Just because you're born into a family and you don't talk to people for years and years and years, and then they come out the blue and they're like, hey, I need to borrow $1,000, but we're family, we're blood. That doesn't carry near as much weight to me and the people around me as being family, because of that experience that we had of a huge struggle and helping someone through a hard time, or having given them advice. And one thing that I always say to my friend Mark, is that that's a person who has been a very positive role model to me as far as confidence goes, and helped me tap into that. I remember he came to visit me in Houston, and when I was there, my self-esteem wasn't the highest. Being 26, 27 years old, and living in a city by myself, where I just had like my work friends, really, and dating and having herpes, and the people around me not knowing that this was actually something that I was really struggling with, it made it tough for me to be myself or be confident even. And I remember like Mark came down and, just introduced me and himself to complete strangers and got me in dialogue with them. And I also remember, oh my God, my friend Steve reminded me of this. When we were at the wedding, he brought up this time where we were all out, and we were out with some models. I don't know how Mark knew these models, but there was one in particular who like had given me attention, and I was like, oh, I think she likes me. And then there was that lingering thought in the back of my head, I'm gonna have to tell her I have herpes. I didn't have to worry about it right then and there, because like I can't even connect with her. And so I remember we left the house that we were at. We go to this bar, Lucas Park. Oh my God, Steve reminded me, and I thought I forgot about this. So I remember getting out of the car. It was a little bit cold. As we walk up to the door, like she comes up to me and like huddles up under my jacket. And I was like, ooh. I put my arm around her, walk into the place, and like we're there and drinking, socializing. I remember like I was probably being really fucking creepy, just like in my head thinking like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And so, I need to pause this because this is terrible. So, at some point in the night, I think we were getting ready to leave. And so, I go up to talk to her. And I remember she looks up at me. She looks at me in my eyes. I'm like, damn, she's pretty. And she puts her arms around me and goes, yeah, what's up? And I go, hey, I can't think of nothing else to say, but can I get your number? she goes, she goes and put her number in my phone. And then she goes, call me when you think of something better than that. Oh my God. That was terrible. Anyways, oh man, that haunts me to this day. And like I said, I completely repressed it. But then when Steve had mentioned it, I was like, damn, why you remind me of that? I'm crying right now. Anyways, so that's where I got to be at. I got to be around my chosen family over the course of that week, well over the 3 days of the wedding. When I stopped doing like something positive for positive people related stuff. So it was good to like recall those experiences, and I think that it's also important for us to make more time for those quality experiences, because despite us having not been the closest over the last few years, we still have those memories to draw on, and that's where the connection is established. Like the connection that I have with people and the connections that we have with people, the density, the intensity. I don't know. There's probably a much better word for what I'm trying to articulate here, but I think that the quality of those connections based on experiences outweigh the frequency of appearances in a person's life. So that's it for that. That's all right. That's enough of what I've been doing and what's been going on with me. What I want to say here is thank y'all. Thank y'all. We got to 1,000 survey participants for the 2021 HSV survey results. And there were some, like, people kind of wrote in their own answers and didn't necessarily just fill in the boxes. Like, for the second question, the first question, it was like, which HSV do you have? Do you have HSV1? Do you have HSV2? Do you have HSV1 and 2? And people like felt the need to write in that it was genital or that it was oral. Well, mostly everybody wrote it in that it was genital. I was like, but that was the next question. You didn't have to write that in. So I have to go in and just kind of like move things around in a sense, in a way that makes sense. So like for that first question, it was, which type do you have? If people wrote in their own answer, then it kind of skews the results because it looks like not everyone, even people who have HSV2, have written in a new answer to add that it's genital, regardless of the next question being, where do your symptoms present, if that makes sense. So I have to do like some tedious things like that throughout the survey and lump together the similar answers, and then I'll be able to get the data uploaded to the website. But I had an interview with Vice Magazine. Now, whether or not this article gets published, I don't know, but we were able to say we did a survey of 1,000 people. This is phenomenal. I can't think of a time where I envisioned that 1,000 people who had herpes would step up and lead the sort of 300 escapade on Trojan. I don't know. I'm trying to make an analogy here, and I'm butchering it. But if you ever seen the movie 300 with King Leonidas, and he takes himself and 300 Spartans with him to lead an not ambush. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, he just led an army to go and beat up the Trojans, I guess. So he took that army with him, the best warriors, and he led an attack, and it was effective. He bought time for Sparta. He weakened the armies of Trojans. I don't know. And I mean, yeah, they died in the process. But in this case, we're not dying, y'all. We ain't dying. We will at some point, but like that's not what we're doing here. So to the 1,000 people, 1,000 plus at this point, because I haven't closed the survey. I said I was going to close it June 1st, but that first 1,000 bit of survey results, that was super important because I was able to get that to a media publication that is, please let them do something with this. I was able to do something with that, and we led an attack on HSV stigma collectively. Like, that's us. We did that. We're the 300 of this shit right now, and I want everybody who took that survey, and well, if you're listening to this, the survey should be closed, but everyone who participated, like, y'all dope for that. And there were 4 or 5 people who said that they weren't going to do the survey because it required you to sign in to Google, and that risk anonymity. And that really frustrated me because like you've got text messages in your phone. I'm sure you got messages in writing that have some sort of disclosure or something, and other people have your information that are far significantly less trustworthy than I am. And for you to like not be able to just sign into your Google account to take a survey because you fear that somehow, I don't know if you fear me doing it or if you feel Google doing it, but if Google were to have outed me, so to speak, I would sue the shit out of them. I would be looking for an opportunity for somebody to try and out me about my status and let me be able to prove that that impacts my employment. Oh, this would have been a come up. So, I mean, like, I understand, people fear job loss. They fear judgment. They fear everything else that's written on this survey that people were able to check boxes for or write in. But it saddens me. Like, it really makes me sad that people are at a place where they have to even fear their job loss, or they have to fear the risk of being able to take care of their survival needs, all because they had sex. They did the same thing their parents did, and the parents of the people who pass judgment and can or will or could possibly impact our employment status. Like, everybody has had sex to make the population exist. Like, sex is existent. So I don't necessarily think that it's herpes stigma that people are concerned about. Is sexual shame around sex for whatever reason. I don't know, but we can explore this for days on end. But just the way that we don't talk about sex is really what the problem is. So when people are afraid of being outed, I don't think they're afraid of people finding out that they have herpes. They're really afraid of people finding out that they had sex and got herpes. Because, I mean, I don't understand, what the difference is between someone having oral herpes, right, versus someone having gotten genital herpes. Because where would it have come from? If the majority of the population has oral herpes, and let's say the majority of the adult population is having sex, let's go ahead and say that there's probably some oral contact included there. So naturally, that's going to be a factor in how it passes on. So are you ashamed of the fact that someone may have given you oral sex, or that you may have given oral sex? Because, like, if every time we had sex we got pregnant or had a baby, then I imagine there wouldn't be shame, because the focus would be on, oh, congratulations, pregnancy, yeah. Like sex is completely overlooked. Oh my God, you've been trying to have a baby. No, I've been having sex. That's what it is. So why don't we just call it what it is? Anyway, I'm going on a tangent again. I need to stop doing that. Survey results are very reflective of the qualitative data that I've collected from the interviews. About 14-ish% of the survey participants use he, him, his pronouns. And this was the most simplified way that I could just find out who's man, who's not a man, right? And I also wanted to be inclusive of people who don't identify with being a man or a woman. And so asking people their pronouns was the most simple way of doing this. A couple of standout, I didn't want to do this for this episode, but a couple of standout statistics are that 70 to 80%, I forget the exact number, of people who were diagnosed with HSV, this was their first STI diagnosis. 70% of people who have HSV have not experienced another STI diagnosis. So that directly challenges the stigma in regard to people who have HSV are promiscuous, or they're not safe, or they're more likely to get more STIs. I don't think that's the case. I think we're careful in the beginning, and then we're more careful after we get one. So where is this information coming from? Another thing is that on the 2019 survey that I took. Um, I took for people exclusively who were listening to Something Positive for Positive People, and 99% of people who took that survey said that they had depression. 99% of people who took that survey in 2019, exclusively podcast listeners, had depression. So this survey in 2021, I didn't announce it on the podcast yet. I announced it in Facebook support groups, on Reddit, and then on Instagram. And we got a lot of responses then, and then I put it out on the podcast. So the data looks a lot different. On 2019 data, 6% of the people had attempted suicide, and like 40 had contemplated suicide. On this survey, I believe it was 25 to 30% of people who were diagnosed had contemplated taking their own lives. 3-ish%, I think it was 3 to 4% of people attempted suicide. Now we're talking about 1,000-person survey. So we're looking at 30 people, 30, who have made an attempt to end their lives after their diagnosis. Now, while this isn't the same as, 6% out of 100, like that's 6 people, but like the numbers are fairly consistent in that regard. But there's also something to be said for the fact that the previous survey was only for podcast listeners, whereas this one was expanded to everyone who has HSV across different groups. So I think that there's something to be said for each type of support group that I reached out to. If you are actively involved in seeking support, you're probably not in the best place. If you are in a social group, then you're probably in a much better place. But there are a few consistencies throughout the board or across the board between people who are at a place where they can be social and then people who aren't at a place where they can be social. So there's something there that I'll need to look at given the information. So I'm going to be really, really engaged with this survey over the course of the next several weeks. I would like to present this at the National Coalition of STD Directors and be able to hopefully present this at the next National Public Health. What's it called? It's called STD Engage, but I forget what I called it. The National Public Health Conference for the National Coalition of STD Directors. So on top of that, I want to challenge the stigma with this survey. The stigma is being challenged as a result of these 1,000 plus people who've made time to just put that 10 minutes in, who have sacrificed their identity, I guess, by being signed into Gmail, right? Oh my God, I'm so frustrated at the stigma. I don't blame people. I blame the stigma for this, for making people feel like they can't contribute to a change because their information's going to be out there. Like, you found this survey, so you're online. And if you're online and you saw the survey, you're on Facebook or something like that where you have to put your information in. I'm rambling again. What else was there? One of the questions that people ask, and this will be where I end talking about the survey, is about same-sex relationships and the transmission rates. We got to get out of that same-sex stuff because it's not about who's having sex. It's about the type of sex being had. Is there genital-to-genital contact? Yes. Then the statistics are consistent with what the transmission rates are from genital-to-genital contact, period. Are we using sex toys? So a lot of people say that they use sex toys in their relationships. So we need to look at transmission rates and ways to reduce transmission rates if there are sex toys being involved. Obviously, that would just look like, not mixing them. Maybe you don't want to put it in your mouth and use spit and go back and forth that way. Perhaps we need to talk about sex in the sense of pleasure with toys. So an informed approach would be to know that there are dental dams. You can utilize dental dams. You can also utilize lube. You can use condoms. You can put condoms on your sex toys, and you can have multiple sex toys. Like, all right, this one's going to be used on me. This one's going to be used on you. We're not going to put it in our mouths. And there are ways to go about this that are worth investigating. Ooh, man. All right. I'm going to have to take more pre-workout. It's been a half hour. But there's a lot of interesting statistical data in here, and I'll do an episode where I just scroll through and I talk through what the survey results are. Or maybe that should be like a video or something. I don't know. We'll figure out what exactly can be done with that. But I'm really, really stoked about the information and what doors have opened up as a result of us collecting this data. The survey was roughly 50 to 60 questions. It took people 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and everything's yes, no, NA, or multiple choice, or check all that apply. So we were able to get graphs, charts, and percentages so that we can show this to whoever it is that wants the information. And this is going to be a great tool for disclosing. It'll be a great tool for people to see that they can have healthy sex lives and relationships after their diagnoses. It's just y'all don't know. Y'all just don't know like what y'all did by participating in this. You have no idea how big of a blow this is going to be to society's perception of us and the stigma. Y'all just don't know. I do. I know it in my bones. I know it in my nerves. Like, I feel that this was the right thing to do. And this was just from me waking up one morning and having a wild hair up my ass at 4 or something, and went to my computer and just started, like, writing. What do y'all want to know? And this comes from us. People who have HSV are the ones that put together these questions and answered these questions. So thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. Wow, I didn't even start talking about what I wanted to talk about. So let's just start. I had a breakup. That's as simple as I can put it. I'd been seeing someone for the last year. It had been a year. And we decided to be boyfriend, girlfriend about 6 months ago. And over the course of our relationship, it was very healthy. There was a consistent issue, and also it was an open relationship. So the challenges that came up with that generally revolve around like what boundaries are and how we navigate relationships with other potential partners and other partners in general. I'm not going to go into our business in great detail or in depth, but after the past weekend, there had been something lingering, and it took for me to be in a place where I didn't have distractions around me, or I didn't have to be somewhere like in between. Like I had alone time when I was in California, and during that alone time, I think that a lot of the external voices around me were silenced to the point where this constant gentle whisper of my most me self was lingering. I could hear it, and it was saying something to me. I couldn't quite put the words together. Fortunately, I had pushed back therapy because some stuff came up. My flights got delayed, and it was just like divine timing for me to have had therapy after having heard this whisper. So while we're in therapy, we talk about my relationship specifically, and I mentioned, that I'm not insecure, I'm not jealous, I'm not confusing. Like, I'm going through the list of things that I'm not, and in having this exchange with my therapist, I'm figuring out what that voice is saying, because there's something off about the relationship and I can't quite pinpoint it. So I finally put words to it, and as I talk, my therapist listens and affirms what it is that I think the major issue of my relationship was, because once that unraveled, it broke down a lot of the disconnects and disagreements that we had, and it was really intermingled with that, so to speak. And I can speak from my end that I'm needy. I am a very needy partner in terms of needing support and needing to be challenged. And one of the things that I can say consistently happened that my ex-partner and I agree on, is that there were points where one of us needed support where we were met with being challenged, and we needed to be challenged where we were met with support. So these disconnects, these misalignments of communication with one another, this is what cause like ripples or speed bumps in our relationship dynamics. And so as I was processing that, I had this realization, oh man, they just started construction outside. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going to try and finish up here before it starts to get too annoying. These disconnects all stemmed from just me not feeling supported when I needed to be, and me not being challenged when I needed to be, right? And me trying to communicate that and express that, what I was saying wasn't being heard. So it came off as being insecure. It came off as being needy. It came off as being all these different things that don't line up with my identity and my identities, right? So as I continue to talk through this and process this, something came up where I look up and I was like, dang, it's been a year, and I've not seen like my partner share that her boyfriend does this stuff in regards to herpes. And when I had that thought, I was just kind of like, damn, I think that's important to me, because I see on social media where people are so proud of their partners, their significant others, and they're just like, oh, so-and-so had this big accomplishment. They did this thing. I'm so proud of them. And I feel like I had a lot of accomplishments that I would get recognition from complete strangers. Now, granted, these complete strangers are people who found the resources of something positive for positive people, who needed the resources of something positive for positive people, and happened to be along the ride for those time frames. Whereas, like, yeah, she'd say, hey, I'm proud of you, or good job. I'd get that kind of recognition. But I think that while I say, I need to be supported and I need to be challenged, something that I learned throughout the course of this relationship is the importance of me being celebrated. And I don't know if people can really resonate with that, but I think that that's like a major key factor. And perhaps being supported looks like being celebrated, but I more so look to support as I'm feeling something, I just need validation in feeling that. I look at being challenged as I'm saying one thing and doing something else. So for instance, if I am saying like, this is the kind of person I am, I want to be consistent, I want to be transparent, I want to be mature, I want to reciprocate. If I'm not in line with those 4 values, then I need to be called out. And then as far as like being celebrated goes, like, it's not about trying to increase the numbers or the exposure or anything like that. What it's about to me is just like be proud of me. Are you someone who can handle being in a relationship with someone who is actively out there in regards to stigma, with something that's so like shamey and just frowned upon or taboo, whatever? And when I had that realization, I was like, damn, okay, that might be the case. And, not to say that this is what her experience is. We've discussed this already, and I'm just speaking vaguely from my experience, as it's not vague. I'm speaking as precisely as I can to what my experience has been. And like I said, she and I have talked about this already, and there's a little bit more to it, but ultimately, like, I'm providing an overview because I want people to know, as much as I like to say it ain't about the herpes, sometimes it is about the herpes. And in a sense, for myself, like, this isn't something that I can go back from without having to erase a major part of my identity. And so what was happening to me with that whisper was, the whisper was just telling me, hey, Courtney, you're not being who you are. That whisper was saying to me, you have these values, this is your identity, and you're not living up to what your expectations are for yourself. Like my real expectations of myself. So once that came to be, like I couldn't unsee that from myself. So after a conversation, we had to just transition the relationship. We had a breakup. What friendship looks like is just going to be something that over time we figure out. Like I have an idea of what boundaries to have for someone that I consider to be a really good friend. And we'll meet somewhere in that once she's able to see that for herself as well. But to have like a breakup be to me because of herpes, I think that, you know, as much as I can, I need to put that out here on display for people, because while, yeah, I want to get away from herpes being such a focus, I can't unsee that it had a major role in the relationship dynamics that I had. This is, in fact, a big part of my life, and anyone who's going to be in my life has to understand that. And metaphorically, like I look at it like this, you know, if this something positive for positive people to me is like my child, it's my baby, and the best way that I can compare it would be to someone who has a pet or a child. Like your identity as a pet, or your identity as a pet owner or a pet parent, your identity as a parent, like that's what this is. And I felt that throughout the course of my relationship, I wasn't getting recognition as being a good parent from, you know, my partner, who essentially is like the step parent of this thing. So I don't know necessarily that this is something that'll apply to everyone, but if you're not doing any sort of mental health advocacy or herpes education advocacy, then what's your form of that? Are you supported in your expression? Are you challenged in your expression? Are you celebrated in your expression? Whether that's art, whether that's poetry, whether that's in climbing up the corporate ladder in your career field, whether that be crushing goals and sales, whether it be that you taught the shit out of that lecture, whether it be that you got, you know, a comment from someone who you've really helped with your work, whether it just be, I don't know what else there is. Like, I hope that I've touched on enough to be able to connect with something with you, for you to understand the importance of having a partner, having a support group, a community, people around you who not only support and challenge you, but also celebrate you. Those are really important, you know, and whether we know it or not, like having our identities affirmed, that's important. I strongly identify with who I am as H on my chest. It's an extension of Courtney Warren Brain. And everything that I do is an extension of Courtney Warren Brain. So it's important, again, for me to be supported, challenged, and celebrated in being Courtney Warren Brain. And if I'm not being Courtney Warren Brain, whatever that looks like, then I'm out of alignment. And that whisper that hovers in the background, like, I need to make space for that. And I encourage you all to do that as well. You know, one of the ways that I've done it is, while I was in Cali, I did a lot of yoga and meditation. And I think that was something that genuinely helped me clear space for me to be able to hear what needed to be heard. And not only that, but to be able to take the action that needed to be taken. If this is something that in fact resonates with you, I hope that you're able to take something from this and apply it in your day-to-day life. I've learned throughout this that while I'm consistently emotionally neutral, when I address things, or when I assert boundaries, or when I ask for a need to be met, I normally don't attach any emotion to it. I recognize that I don't like something, and then I'll say, hey, I don't like this thing. Can you please do this instead? Can we change it? And I'm very good about communicating it. But when there's no emotion behind it, or when the emotion behind it is neutral, I don't think that really inspires people to do anything. For instance, with this survey, like, I was ready to start DMing men and being like, hey, y'all need to take this survey. I know how many of y'all are in here. I know that y'all see this. Like, I need y'all to step up. When I put that passion behind it, the number doubled, like the percentage doubled. It went from 7% of men taking the survey to 14. When I put that final push out there, like when I say, hey, I don't ask y'all for a lot. I've been doing this for 4 years. Y'all can do this for 10 minutes. When I put the emotion behind it, the number skyrocketed. But throughout my relationship, I don't think that I did that. Whenever there were issues, it was just me being neutral, me being neutral, me being neutral. And then all of a sudden there's a blow up. Don't allow for yourself to have any sort of a blow up in your day-to-day life, in your relationships. Like, address the stuff. If there's an emotion behind it, be emotional. That's okay. Because, I mean, if I had, things would have been different. Had I been emotional about it, had I gotten fired up, things would have been different. I know they would have. And so, like, as much as I want to make believe that oftentimes things aren't about the herpes and that we make herpes a much bigger deal than it is, in this case, for me, it was. And for me, being someone who's public and openly talking about this, I recognize now how important it is for this aspect of myself that I've gone so long denying, because I've just been like, don't make this about herpes. It's not about herpes. Sometimes it really is. Sometimes it really is just about the herpes. And I didn't realize how big of a deal that was. So, like, now moving forward, I know that when evaluating partners, I need to know, hey, is this, when I'm around your family and friends, am I able to say, when they ask me what I do or how my day was, can I say, oh, I did this herpes survey for people living with herpes, and I came to find out that 1,000 people do support me, and I want to challenge the CDC. Like, can I go into this depth of conversations? I can't say that I've really been in any relationships like that where it was acceptable for me to do that beyond directly with the person that I was seeing. And now I recognize how important that is to me. Now I recognize how important it is for someone who has like a mutually shared passion, who can relate and be able to, go through the celebration processes, because resentment is real. Resentment and envy, jealousy, like, these are real feelings that people can have towards someone, especially in a relationship. And while I don't necessarily make the most money, in fact, I have like a lot of financial insecurities right now. But that's another podcast episode. Actually, that's a self podcast episode. Remember, I mentioned that earlier. You can go check that out if you want to. But I definitely have what seems to be like an infinite amount of emotional currency. And I'm able to offer that. And I know that that's my, if nothing else, like, that's a value that I have to give. Where was I going with that? I lost it when I said emotional insecurity, because that was like something that I don't like sharing with people. Yep, I lost it. Anyway, so yeah, okay, I remember now. Just jealousy, envy, and resentment, for someone who is doing what you wish you were doing, or they wish that they were doing or able to do, or having like freedom, or being so self-aware. Like, it's unfortunately a luxury to be able to explore, discover, and express yourself, your identity in these times. I don't think I'd have had it if it had not been for 2020, where I had to sit down for 3 months and I didn't actually have to worry about my income. I didn't have to worry about a lot of the day-to-day survival stuff because of that, like, because of getting the unemployment assistance, and because of having limited time at work or limited clients to work with. I was able to do that. Like, I had to at that point though, because I would have went crazy. But yeah, it's the damn it, I hate that I'm saying this, man, because like, I'm feeling like I'm giving herpes so much power. But the way that it showed up was through herpes. Like, these character traits, they showed up through the vehicle that is herpes. Ah. But it does, in fact, highlight emotions, and it has a way of highlighting insecurities. While it is a traumatic event, it does highlight patterns and behaviors and beliefs and aspects of the self that often really are the problem. So once you see that, you can't unsee it. And so, yeah, for me, I recognize like that I was out of alignment throughout a lot of my relationship, mainly because I didn't speak up, and I didn't speak up with emotion because I try to just remain neutral. But I learned that when I do get emotional and when I do blow up, things happen. I remember seeing my mom do this. Like, my mom and my dad were never together, from the time I was born at least. And I remember I'd like ask my dad for things, ask my dad for things, and he'd like dismiss it or be like, all right. And then my mom would be like, did you ask your dad for this? And I'd be like, yeah. What'd he say? And I'll tell her. And then she'd get on the phone, she'd do some yelling, and then whatever that thing was that I needed got done. I never wanted to be like that. And I hate, because it seems like abusive language to me. Like, it feels as if I have to get angry. I have to like down talk people in order to get what I want done. And I've had to do that in relationships because like, hey, will you please, just be honest with me? That doesn't work. But if I were to raise my voice and be like, man, I can't believe you, and then like just demean someone, why is it that has to get, like, that gets results? Or if I have to like end the relationship or leave the job, it's like nobody really takes you seriously until you get emotional. But people are so, I am afraid of emotions. I'm afraid of getting angry because of what happens. Like, now I'm in a breakup. Before I ended a job, and it was a job I probably should have been out of, and this was a relationship that probably has already run its course. But at the end of it all, like, repressing and suppressing emotions, that's something that I'm learning is really unhealthy. Like, it's more healthy to be angry than it is, or get angry than it is to try not to let your anger out, because it's going to come out some kind of way. And I think that for me, being a black man, especially dating interracially, I think that plays a major role in how I choose to navigate any intense emotions that I have, because of how that can be seen. Like, if I yell, if I raise my voice, if I get too, like, with my body language, if it's all over the place, or if my hands start moving too much, or any of that, it can be taken as violent or a threat, and that could be the end of my life. So it's very important for me to, like, quote, control my emotions, so to speak, but being able to direct them towards, my purpose or something meaningful to me, especially virtually, because this ain't no threat for me to get mad and be like, y'all need to take this survey. But it's also, that's safe for me. So, let's see, closing this out, because I do need to go and do my workout. Yeah, it's just keep it in the peripheral, but don't overlook the fact that, you are someone who deserves to be supported, challenged, and celebrated. And while, I don't think we should give such a priority to our relationships that herpes is such a high priority, but sometimes it is. Are you with someone because they have herpes and you do, and it's easy? If you're doing something that you're proud of and your partner can't be supportive of you and celebrate you and challenge you, are they resentful, jealous, envious of you in your expression? Is your partner struggling to find their own sense of self-expression? Perhaps they look to you as a form of healing, or perhaps they're even holding you down or holding you back. These are all things worth evaluating. These are all things that it can be challenging to do, because it's also a pandemic. So, well, it looked like it's over if you look outside right now. Like, I kid you not. I seen people posting on like out at the clubs. The clubs look like they in capacity now, so COVID over to a lot of people. But I think maybe even because of that, there's more. There's more. There can be more like assurance that it's okay for you to not be stuck or stay in an undesired situation. It's okay for you to speak up. It's okay for you to assert your needs and ask for what you need. And shit, man, be emotional. That's okay. Because that's the only time people take us seriously. And if anyone is dismissing your emotions, you need to take that as they don't give a fuck about how you're feeling. And you need to be able to evaluate like, oh, okay, this person doesn't care about how I feel. And you got to be willing to walk away from that. You got to. Fortunately, the communication that I had with my ex-partner was great after the breakup. Being able to sort of like reassess and look back on events and things that happened, and we have a mutual understanding. We have a mutual understanding that of the roles that we played in one another's lives and our roles in the relationships and it is what I consider to be a healthy a healthy departure. And I'm at peace with that because I'm telling you, like, I was like, man, I know I'm not insecure. I know I'm not jealous. I know I'm not resentful. What is it? And then when I figured out, it was just a matter of this like inner chaos within myself that conflicted with my identities. Like I just wasn't being validated in my identity. My identities. Let me say that with the S at the end. And also, like I said, I recognize that I'm needy, and it's okay to be needy as long as you're able to communicate that. Like being able to communicate what your needs are, what your boundaries are, and be able to exchange dialogue with another person about what their own boundaries are so that you can respect and uphold those with one another. I have a need to be challenged, supported, and celebrated in my relationships because these are important to me. My partners, whatever, like those are very important relationship dynamics, and these are people that I would like to be able to be celebrated with and be my whole self with. I spent a lot of my life not being who I am, and for however much time I got left, I'll be damned if I go back to that. So yeah, that was so that last little 30-ish minutes, that was really what I wanted to come on here and talk about. I think that this was really relevant in a sense of we don't get to talk about relationships, like actual relationships. We talk about the relationship that caused herpes. We talk about herpes in relationships, but how often do we hear about people walking away or ending relationships or transitioning them because of it? And like I'm an outlier here because this is a big part of my work. This is a big part of my identity, unfortunately. But fortunately, everything that I'm learning here is something that can be applied to anything. If you replace herpes with any other life situation or adversity, then you got that. Like you got the same situation where we're talking about the importance of self-exploration, discovery, and expression. And we're learning from that. So, this is another form of self-education. The experiences that are shared here allow for other people to educate themselves. So that's where we'll end it here. That concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, share, subscribe to this podcast. When these survey results come out, y'all, please share them. If you go to the doctor for a checkup, or you want to get your medication refilled, share this resource. It doesn't mean as much coming from me because it looks like self-promotion, but coming from y'all, it means everything. It means so much more when the spaces see that a member of their own communities are out there finding resources, sharing them, and making an effort to support one another. That's what helps. Because when I do it, it's self-promotion, it's spam. When y'all do it, it's helping one another. So the 1,000 surveys we got, that came from people sharing this, from people. This wasn't me. I couldn't have done this on my own. Like I did it without the help of like other major influencers sharing with their people, but it came from the community. Like this is our survey. This is our information. This is us. We did this. Like we are the 300 of this herpes shit. And this is Sparta. Ooh, Nah, I wish I could just kick somebody in their chest down this deep hole. All right, y'all. Thank you very much. Till next time, stay sex positive.